Speaker.
I call Alistair Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to rise in to support the Appropriation 2015-16 Supplementary Estimates Bill. And Mr. Speaker, I'd like to talk not so much about the money or the amount of money that's listed in the documents, but more about the results, because that's what matters. It's the results that count. It's not a matter of numbers of dollars, nor even perhaps the number of police on the streets. What matters is the results. And reflecting on Mr. Mark's comments about the police, I was just thinking, my father retired from the police around 1990. He started probably around 1958 as a constable. And now he wouldn't know, jumping into a police car nowadays, he'd be just amazed at the technology and the efficiency and the change in the way that criminals are dealt with, and youth are dealt with, from the way that he dealt with them back in the day. Because I've been in a cop car recently, sir, and they do amazing things. The technology has enabled results to be almost instant. And Mr. Speaker, with technology, the results matter. And I can also reflect in the town of Dannevirke, where technology is used to get results, where they've put up CCTV cameras in the town. And that's getting results. That's reducing and enabling crime to be pushed out of Dannevirke. And as we've seen in the results, crime stats are coming down. Less youth are going to prisons. These are important stats because they affect the way that our communities act and behave in the future. Other results that matter, NCEA, we've talked a little bit about NCEA results, performance increasing, more youth passing NCEA level 2 than ever before, particularly in Māori and Pacifica, having fantastic increase in results. Farm funding, increased Farm funding enables better results to be achieved for the likes of melanoma victims. Colon scanning is now going to be part of the health system, rolled out in the first instance in the Wairarapa and the Hutt Valley. These are results that matter. Mr. Speaker, we get these results because we have a strong economy. And that economy is going to enable debt, forecast debt will fall below 20% of GDP. That is an important result. The percentage of government involvement in the economy is also reducing, enabling private sector, the New Zealanders, to take control of their own lives, their own destinies, by having a greater part of the economy as the influence or the expenditure that the government has reduces. And we've already heard that new money from this side of the House is at each budget is about half of what the previous government spent per budget, if you like. So approximately $3 billion a year of new funding was introduced each year by the opposition, and about $1.5 billion per year is the constrained and sensible amount of new money injected into the economy by this side of the House. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance has already talked about results in the social investment sector. So we know that the results of the $1 million kids are important. We need to identify these kids and invest and wrap around those children, because again, they are going to be the future that we live in tomorrow. So once we can identify those kids, we can invest and care for those kids. And we've already seen improvements in that future liability, that future balance sheet item, reduce. And that is because of the investment we're making and have been making today. So we know, Mr. Speaker, that if a kid's got a SIFS contact, mum and dad have been in jail or have been on the benefit for more than 5 years in the past, the kid's going to have left school early, we know that that child is at risk. It's highly likely that that child will follow the parents' pathway. And we need to arrest that. And that is why we focus on that end of the community. And that is why we are getting results with the targeted, and that my emphasis is on targeted investment. Mr. Speaker, we've had a few speakers before me, and so far I haven't heard of any alternative approach, any better way forward from the opposition, today at least, except perhaps the build housing, the 100,000 houses from, build more houses is the solution to the Greens issue, and of course the building homes from the Labor Party, 100,000 homes program. But where are these buildings going to come from? Who's going to build them? Who's going to pay for them? And where will they be built? So that's a fundamental question. That's a $50 billion project. If we, let's say, $500,000 a house, that's a big program. And do we really expect the taxpayer to fund that? Do we really expect the state to get involved and build like that 100,000 houses? I don't think so. The other alternative policy that we've heard to solve some of these issues that we continually debate and have talked about today, this afternoon, is the universal benefit idea, where all the benefits are cut. Well, there's an idea, but who's going to pay for the universal benefit that is replaced by the targeted social welfare system that we have today? So with the UBI, I and all of us here, Mr. Speaker, would receive about $11,000. And that wipes out all benefits for all people. But of course, I don't need that funds. I'm not in need of an extra $11,000. But to ignore all those people most in need is, quite frankly, a very poorly thought out policy from the opposition. Again, who's going to pay for the idea that there should be free tertiary education for anyone over 18? Another bums on seats idea that is apparently going to educate everyone so that they are able to get higher paying jobs and more jobs. But of course, again, it's not targeted. There's no filter. There's no criteria. Anyone can turn up and sit on a seat at a university who has not previously been at a university or a tertiary education and spend taxpayers' money. See, that's the difference, Mr. Speaker. This side of the House considers taxpayers' money when they invest, when they decide where the money should be spent. It's not a lolly scramble on this side. It's not a free-for-all. We know it's limited resources. We are concerned for the taxpayers' money because we're all taxpayers. That's who we represent. And of course, we talked at question time today, the question around increasing paid parental leave. Well, yeah, we'd all like to have mums or dads have increased paid parental leave, but there must be consideration to the cost. And as the Minister of Finance mentioned himself, $25 a week going into every family, beneficiary family with children, or something else. And we've decided that the priority is to target those most in need. So, Mr. Speaker, I was going to talk about Brexit, actually. Mr. Bishop talked about Brexit and how it had changed, and I'd reflect on when Margaret Thatcher got kicked out of Parliament. I was working in London at the time, and there was chaos and calamity. This situation, I don't think, is going to be the same as back in those days. That's because the economy here today that we are lucky enough to be working in is a diversified economy. It is much more resilient, it's much more flexible, and it's a much more understanding of what the economy does for the community. And we do understand that a strong economy is the only way that we can afford to invest in those and support those most in need. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill, this appropriations bill, talks about where money flows and where it doesn't flow, but really it's all about getting results, and that is what we're targeted on this side of the House. We want to leave more money in the taxpayers' pocket for them to decide to do what they wish to do with it, and reduce government debt over time, reduce the government's share of the economy over time, and I commend this bill to the House.
The next call is a split call. Julianne Genter.